The documentary movie How to Change the World is the story of the pioneers who founded Greenpeace. Today I talked to the daughter of the founder of Greenpeace, Bob Hunter, Emily Hunter. Emily, warm welcome. Nice to see you here in the studio. I saw the movie yesterday, and one of the most impressive moments for me was nothing directly has to do with Greenpeace, but with the moment that you scattered the ashes of your father, Bob Hunter. He died 10 years ago.
That's right.
What describes Bob Hunter best?
Bob Hunter was a visionary. He was constantly looking forward. He wasn't looking back. He always wanted to be 10 steps ahead. And for that, he was willing to take a lot of risks on. And he took a lot of that weight on, being that leader to do that kind of work.
Because he wasn't he didn't plan to be a born leader, right? He became the leader.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic. He was very reluctant. He didn't want to necessarily be that leader role. His father, for him, had actually left his mother and himself at a young age. And he really kind of had this animosity against the leader male archetype. Yeah. And then he found himself being that. Yeah. He had a vision. He didn't necessarily want to be that leader guy, but he did fall into that role.
How do you describe his vision best?
His vision was something much larger than, say, one particular issue, say saving whales or stopping nuclear testing. It was really about a consciousness shift in our culture, shifting us away from just a human-dominated planet, we only think about the human world, very much like today, to a perspective on the world where we are just one species, that we share this world with many, many other species, and we're part of an ecosystem. And so it's really thinking more about the natural world around us and shifting our perspective to that way.
And you already say, like a little bit like today, did things change?
I think things have changed.
Did he have success? Let's put it that way.
You know, he wondered that actually in his last few years whether he had made a difference, and it really pained me to see him ask those kinds of questions, because I knew, and even 10 years later, I definitely know in my heart he did help change the world, and so did that small group of people. We have whale populations that have been able to rebound because of the activist efforts back then. We've helped to stop underground and overground nuclear testing. We've helped, since then, activist movements have stopped ozone depletion. You know, we have park systems, we have clean air and drinking laws because of the efforts of activists from several hundred years ago even. So I would say that he was part of an effort that has helped change that world. But there's still a long way to go, and still our perspective, our consciousness shift still has a lot of work to do.
You're active within Greenpeace, right? What's your role now? Are you the leader, or are you more?
I'm not a leader.
No.
No, and I'd say like my father, I'm reluctant to that. But
what's your role within Greenpeace?
I work within a department called the Mobilization Lab. We're kind of an internal think tank that's trying to shift how campaigns are done within the organization, away from just, say, maybe a few small activists over there trying to change the world, and the rest of us just donate and watch what they're doing, to more of a people power distributed organizing model, which is to say Greenpeace starts becoming just an enabling force where we give the tools, the training, the resources for people to lead campaigns and be a part of campaigns themselves. And we've seen that with efforts like the Save the Arctic campaign this last year, where people mobilized around the world, and we were able to pressure Shell to get out. Whether they want to give us that victory or not, we were able to pressure Shell.
Oh yeah, you did it. That was a moment of victory.
That was a huge moment of victory. Yeah, I really feel like that's an issue for our generation, one of those frontline issues of climate change, and that's one of the very, very vulnerable ecosystems we have to draw a line in the sand and protect, because that was literally the question around runaway climate change, or do we just adapt to the realities of climate change? That presents that kind of question.
The question is, what's the motivation for Shell to leave the area? Do you believe that business can embrace idealism?
I don't know if it's embracing idealism. I think it's also kind of embracing the realities of our planet. We can't go on this infinite growth model and think that we're going to continuously have this. There is a limit to our resources. There's a limit to our world.
Yeah, but that's okay. Then you say it's enough for an organization that they realize that they have to. But I wonder if there's a possibility that companies think that they want to. So that they make a choice, that they say, hey, we can earn a lot of money and ruin the earth, to put it black and white, or we can be a little bit like Greenpeace and we want the same things as Greenpeace wants. Do you believe that big organizations can not really embrace but implement idealism? Or am I idealist myself?
No, I wouldn't say that's idealistic. I think that is happening. I don't want to paint all companies with this black, with one color and say that they're all evildoers. I think that as long as there is that demand and there is a part of that cultural shift, then corporations and companies will follow as well. They're in it for the bottom dollar a lot of the time. They're in it for the profits. I think there are some good people there that are trying to make some of those changes internally, absolutely. But at the end of the day, they're also looking at their profit margins. So if we start saying and demanding, we want these kinds of products over here that are going to have more of a better impact on our planet, not a destructive impact on our planet, they're going to make those shifts. So I do still think it's up to us as the people. We have to pressure them for sure, but we also have to change our cultures in terms of what we want. So it's a bit of a two-way street, And
what do you mean change cultures in what we want?
I think changing what my father talked about, changing our consciousness, changing what we value in terms of, do we want products that have a huge amount of waste and go into landfills? Do we want products that actually have a full circular model that can be reused? Do we want to think about all the things that we're consuming and realizing that they are having an impact? I do think that we as individuals can make a huge impact, and we can pressure these companies to think and act more responsibly with their products. And we can also decide in our own lives what we're going to purchase into and what we're not.
Two persons that have a rather important, more than two, but two persons that I took out of it that have an important role in the whole movie, in the documentary, co-founders. One of them, Paul Watson, and they both, and the other guy also, but Paul, he mentioned some interesting things. I want to know what you're thinking about. He said, we were more powerful when we had nothing, compared with all the millions in people and organization and money we have today. Do you agree with him? Or is it some kind of like the old man looking back?
No, I wouldn't call him the old man looking back. I mean, Paul Watson is still very, very active in terms of Sea Shepherd and doing amazing things, and I'm very, very proud of the organization.
You're close to him, right?
I am. He's been like an uncle to me my whole life, actually. I grew up with him and the stories of Sea Shepherd and went on to join some of those campaigns, and I'm very, very proud of what Sea Shepherd does to this day. I would say, though, with Greenpeace, it's interesting because I think it gets painted, again, all with the same brush. People look at it as just this one living organization, when it's really a network. It's a network of smaller groups all around the world. And these groups are doing a number of campaigns, a number of issues on a number of fronts. How
many people are we talking about worldwide?
Geez, well, I mean, there's 26 offices but operations in 55 countries. There's several hundred employees. But out of that, I mean, there's tens and thousands of volunteers around the world, and if not millions of supporters. So it's a larger movement, and that network is working on many, many fronts. So I think
So you disagree with his remark? That
I would disagree, yeah. I would say that there is smaller groups out there amongst Greenpeace that are shifting things in all kinds of ways. And that small group dynamic that can change the world, that just film shows, is still happening within Greenpeace. It's happening in all kinds of pockets.
He was a little bit like the little bit more extreme guy, Paul Watson. He was like, I won't call him a rebel, but he was really the action kind of guy, right? Back in the old days.
Yeah, he still is. I mean, definitely.
He's looking at the edges, like what can we do and what goes too far.
Pushing the boundaries, for sure. Yeah. Paul Watson, Sea Shepherd definitely push the boundaries, and they don't kind of live within the restraints of. Our same cultural and political values necessarily. They don't want to work within those same kind of restraints. They know a whale is dying, they're going to stop it. And that's what's going to happen, whether it's the right move politically or not at that moment. And I really commend them for it, But it's not to say that other organizations aren't also doing actions.
Yeah. Do you think that if he's talking about power and that if you were more powerful, yes or no, do you need power, because it's one of the things that makes Greenpeace that you don't want power, but isn't power needed to have influence? Maybe some kind of a contrast, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think as an organization grows more and more, you have more power, you have more sway in the world, and then there's this for sure. There's this struggle for power.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I think it's interesting. I mean, Greenpeace for sure, as an organization, as an example, has grown a lot over the last few decades. And while it started with this smaller group of people that did certain actions and were very well known for it, shown in the story, I think it can become it became bigger. It had different dynamics. You have different responsibilities, and you have different structures. It's not going to be necessarily the same little smaller hippie group.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because now you have more sway, at the tables. Now you have more sway with corporations actually having a conversation with them about their destructive use of, of say, forest material. Now you actually have a lot more kind of chips to play with that power.
But is there no risk that you get, people working in your organization that have too much salary or do bad stuff, or that the same thing happens because you are a big organization? How pure can the organization be still today?
I think that just to truly answer that question, I have to kind of go back and to say that I think Greenpeace, it's interesting. The organization gets criticized for a lot of things, and for sure it's become much bigger, and for sure people can point the blame at, well, you're not doing this right, and you're not doing that right, and for sure mistakes have been had. As is going to happen with really any organization, mistakes are going to happen over time. But I think we're so good as a culture and as people to criticize what's being done wrong rather than to see all the great things that have happened. And the fact is, a lot of forests have been saved. The fact is, toxic waste in our oceans has been stopped. The fact is, we're fighting year on year on climate change battles, trying to protect the Arctic. There's a lot of really great things that are also going on in the organization and in the movement at large. And I think, it's better for us to try to kind of support others that are doing something about it than criticize the ones that are actually out there doing anything for our planet. And if people feel like they know what's better, then great. Come be a part of it and come try to make it better. Because it's so much easier to criticize than to actually do.
Talking about criticizers, there's the Patrick Moore guy. Once one of the co-founders, and now rather against Greenpeace, right?
Yeah.
Because he's really, you're really cool that he's in the movie. Because I don't know, it's some kind of an independent director that made it. Yeah. Because he's at the end, but he is saying some stuff. Your anti-globalization, anti-capitalism, anti-business orientation is extremely destructive, and that's the thing I want to have your reactions on. That we humans are not the cause of global warming. What's happened with Patrick Moore? Because he was one of the co-founders, and now he's saying this kind of stuff.
I mean, this is unfortunately kind of sometimes what happens is you get these really extreme dynamics of people. And with Patrick Moore, he went to the extremes right. And he sold out his brothers and sisters, his movement, everything he was fighting for in order to make a buck. And he's made a lot of money doing it. Oh, yeah. No, he is one of the merchants of doubt. You can pay for him to sell that killing forests is fine, climate change is not happening. You name it.
Who's hiring him then?
Oh, Monsanto, you name it. He's gotten many big backers to support him before. So he has an agency where he will do this kind of press relations for whichever company will fund him.
But what kind of companies are that then? Who want that?
Well, as I said,
the commercial companies that.
Yeah, commercial companies that will need these kinds of merchants of doubt, these scientists that will go up there to expel doubt in the media on climate change, on forest issues, GMO crops, he's on big pharma, you name it. He's out there to try to act as if the science is not quite agreeing.
Yeah, because he says, I'm a scientist myself, so I know. And, okay. Enough about Patrick. I didn't like him at the end. If we're looking at the movie, then it all started with the Amchitka Island, the nuclear test, in the time of Richard Nixon. What should governments do now, if we're looking at 2015?
What should governments do now on nuclear issues?
Yeah, nothing, I guess, but a little bit broader than that. What's your main message to governments right now around the world?
Right now?
Prioritize, please.
On prioritize. Okay, well, back then it was a lot focused on nuclear issues and the nuclear armament and post-Cold War issues. Today, what we're fighting also is a different issue, but it's climate change and that issue connects to poverty. It connects to migrant issues. Yeah. It's connected to our health. You name it. A lot of the issues we're facing, the tensions we're facing today, has to connect to this issue of climate change. And so, our economy has been run on a fossil fuel-based economy for so long. And so we have dug our heels in the sand trying to talk and debate ourselves out of actually doing any real action on this. And this is literally one of the defining issues of our generation. This literally is the future of my generation and my children's generation. And I know we've heard all those kinds of lines before, but truly, what is going to be decided upon in the next 10 years is going to dictate the rest of human history. That is what they have to hang on their shoulders. That is the reality that we're facing. And so no matter what short-term profits, no matter what corporations are telling them to keep digging their heels in the sand, this is really the biggest war or fight or struggle that we've ever faced. It's bigger than any world wars before. And this will have huge impacts and already is. So really, this is the issue we have to get serious on. We have to cut our emissions on. It is one of the most serious issues we've ever faced.
We have to cut our emissions. Is that going fast enough?
The commitments that are happening, right? I think as far as negotiations that have gone over 20 years, right now it's pretty much faster than it has been. We've seen China now do a cap and trade. We've seen at least the beginning of some cuts by the U.S. being promised. It's still beginning days as far as I'm concerned. There needs to be a lot more coming from the U.S. But we're seeing also lots of cities and island states now committing to go 100% renewable by 2050. We're seeing some...
2050?
2050,
yeah. For me, it's like, man, dude,
I know.
Hurry up.
Yeah, hurry up. I agree. We need a lot more happening a lot faster, but at least we're starting to finally see some real commitments by some big players. Yeah. We're also
companies, right?
And
look at companies like Bill Gates and the new internet heroes,
Tesla.
So is that a sign of the times that maybe your dad wouldn't be that easy to embrace like commercial companies and everything that has to do with money, but that's my hope a little bit, that you can be a commercial company, but at the same time you can be an idealist. So
I would agree. That's what I was trying to say before, is that I don't think we have to again say they're all evil villains. I just think for the most of history, recent history, a lot of corporations have been doing quite a lot of destructive practices against human and environmental justice. But that is changing. We are starting to see major corporations starting to get on board, actually being the ones to even push government. Exactly. Actually, we want you to make these emissions. Actually, we want these standards for our cars. That there are some really positive changes that are happening both in industry sector, from civilians and communities to politics. And we're starting to see, I think, the beginning of that consciousness shift, that transition in our society. But it really is just the beginning. We have to keep pushing. And past Paris Climate Summit, we have to keep these transitions happening right here at home, in your own countries, in your own communities. That's where the work is going to have to be.
And do you connect enough to the young people? Are they open for this story?
They're hungry for it.
Yeah?
Young people are extremely hungry for it. I found that, I've been an activist for 10 years now, and I've been speaking to a lot of young people around the world, and they're constantly looking for ways of how to get involved. It's just, we hear so much about the crisis narrative around us and how things are falling apart. We hear very little of what people are actually doing and how to get involved. Yet those stories are out there. They're out there in numbers. They're the small groups of committed, passionate people, like the story shows, that are happening today and making change in small and large ways. But those stories barely get out there. And so I think young people are hungry. They want it. They just don't necessarily know where to go and how to get started.
Yeah. Is your mom still active within Greenpeace?
My mom is, she's a mover and shaker. She's more politically active, I would say, in Canada. And right now we have our big federal election, so we're trying to get our own kind of Bush character out the door. Okay. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, she is still active. And
then there are three brothers or sisters, with Will, Conan and Justin. Are they doing different stuff or also involved in the organization?
Yeah, they're all doing different stuff, but my dad was always proud of all of them, and they're all kind of active in one way or another. My half-sister Justine is a political reporter from one of the big newspapers there, and she really speaks about environmental and First Nations rights, so she's really reporting on some of the same issues my dad was.
Last question, talking about that young generation, which of course is, those are the future, they are the future. What should they do tomorrow? Because you were just saying that sometimes they don't know what they can do. What can they do?
I think No, the biggest thing really is that we get told the story that we cannot be active, or that we are apathetic. As a generation, we don't care, that the whole world is in crisis, so don't even bother trying. I think the biggest thing is shifting that story for ourselves and knowing that actually we can shift, we can change the world. It's always been small groups of committed, passionate people that have made the shift. And so this next Paris mobilization is a huge moment to start getting active, getting involved in local groups, and being a part of this incredible moment. But knowing that the work has to continue past that. We have to keep pushing for change in our own cities. We have to keep pushing for better standards for renewable energy, and just volunteering with local groups. It's a really great way to feel a part of a community that is actually trying to change the world.
And create some mind bombs.
Create some mind bombs.
And if you want to know what mind bombs are, then please take a look at the movie How to Change the World. Emily Hunter, thank you very much for being my guest.
Thank you.
And thanks for watching. For more videos, watch 7dish.tv. Thanks for watching again. Bye.